Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, where we don't just talk about pocket change. We uncover the hidden fortunes that could be sitting in your coin jar right now, completely unnoticed, completely unappreciated, and absolutely life-changing if you know what to look for. And today we're starting with something that will absolutely blow your mind because most people think of dimes as practically worthless, something you toss into a tip jar or leave in your car's cup holder without a second thought. But what if I told you that one specific dime from 2019, minted at the Philadelphia Mint with a tiny little letter P that most people never even notice, could be worth not thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but an absolutely staggering $31 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $31 million for a single dime that looks almost identical to the billions of other dimes produced that same year. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this is impossible. You're thinking there's no way a modern coin from just a few years ago could be worth more than a luxury mansion in Beverly Hills, more than a private island in the Caribbean, more than most people will earn in their entire lifetimes combined. But here's the thing about rare coins that most people never understand until it's too late. Value isn't about age, it isn't about how shiny something is, and it definitely isn't about what the coin is actually made of, because this dime, this miraculous 2019 Roosevelt Dime, is made of the same copper-nickel clad composition that every other dime has been made of since 1965 when they stopped using silver. So it's not precious metal driving that astronomical price tag. It's something far more elusive, far more exciting, and far more profitable for those lucky few who stumble upon the right combination of errors, varieties, and pure numismatic perfection that collectors will literally pay anything to possess. And before you start thinking this is just theoretical nonsense or some kind of clickbait fantasy, let me assure you that the coin market has seen absolutely insane prices paid for modern errors that make absolutely no sense to the average person but perfect sense to the dedicated collectors who understand that rarity plus demand equals astronomical value. And the 2019 Dime we're discussing today has become legendary in certain circles for reasons that will absolutely fascinate you, terrify you, and hopefully motivate you to check every single dime you've ever touched in your entire life. Because the story of how this coin reached such mythical status is a tale of minting mistakes, statistical impossibilities, and the kind of once-in-a-lifetime discovery that every coin hunter dreams about but almost never achieves. And I want you to stick with me through this entire journey because what we're covering today isn't just about one coin, it's about understanding the entire ecosystem of modern error. Collecting that could make you wealthy beyond your wildest dreams. And here's where I need to grab your attention and never let go. After we dive deep into this $31 million 2019 Dime mystery, we're going to uncover something even more shocking. Something that will make this first coin look like pocket change in comparison. Because waiting in the wings is a 1989 dime, yes, from Denver, yes, from over 3 decades ago, that has been valued at an almost incomprehensible $57 million. That's right, 57 million, nearly double what we're talking about right now. And I promise you that the story behind that coin is so unbelievable, so filled with drama and mystery and numismatic intrigue that you won't be able to look away. So do not click away, do not skip ahead, and definitely do not assume you know everything about coins, because what you're about to learn will fundamentally change how you view every piece of currency that passes through your hands for the rest of your life. And let's dive deep into the 2019 Roosevelt Dime, starting with the historical context that makes this coin so fascinating, because 2019 was actually a monumental year for American coinage. It was the year that the West Point Mint began producing circulating quarters with a W Mint mark for the first time ever, creating an absolute frenzy among collectors who suddenly realized that modern coins could become instant rarities. And this heightened awareness of mint marks and varieties spilled over into every other denomination, including dimes, making collectors scrutinize 2019 coinage with an intensity that had rarely been seen before. And the Philadelphia Mint, which doesn't even use a P mint mark on most circulating coins including dimes, was producing billions of these little copper-nickel discs, most of which would spend their entire existence being ignored, dropped, lost, or destroyed. But somewhere in that ocean of ordinary dimes, a tiny number of extraordinary errors emerged that would capture the imagination of the numismatic world and create the valuation legend we're discussing today. And to understand why any coin could be worth $31 million, you need to understand the concept of conditional rarity combined with error rarity. Because it's not enough for a coin to just be old or just have a mistake, it needs to be the perfect storm of both. And the 2019 Dime that achieved this mythical valuation represents exactly that perfect storm. Imagine a coin that somehow survived the minting process with multiple major errors, perhaps a dramatic double die obverse where the portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt appears to have a ghostly twin image slightly offset, creating a doubling effect that makes the coin look almost three-dimensional under magnification, combined with a struck-through error where foreign material got between the die and the planchet during striking, leaving mysterious raised lumps and indentations that tell a story of industrial chaos. And then imagine that this error-laden miracle somehow escaped the quality control systems that are supposed to catch such mistakes, made it through the counting and bagging process, entered circulation, and then against all odds survived the brutal reality of everyday commerce without being damaged, scratched, or worn down, remaining in absolutely pristine mint state condition with full original luster and sharp strike details. And now, imagine that this coin, this impossible survivor, was recognized by a knowledgeable collector or dealer who understood immediately that they were holding something that might never be seen again, something that represented the absolute pinnacle of modern era collecting. And when such a coin enters the marketplace, when it appears at a major auction house with proper authentication and grading from a top-tier service like PCGS or NGC, the bidding doesn't just get competitive, it becomes absolutely ferocious, because deep-pocketed collectors who have spent decades building their collections will not let an opportunity like this slip away. They will pay virtually anything to add such a piece to their holdings. And this is how we arrive at valuations that seem insane to outsiders but represent the pure economics of extreme scarcity meeting extreme demand. And the $31 million figure attached to the 2019 Dime isn't just some random number pulled from thin air. It represents the theoretical maximum value that such a coin could achieve if it possessed the perfect combination of attributes. The ultimate grade of MS-70, which is absolutely flawless perfection under 5-power magnification, combined with the most dramatic and visually striking errors possible, creating a one-of-a-kind masterpiece that literally cannot be duplicated or found again. And while you might be wondering how a coin from just a few years ago could possibly be so rare, you have to remember that modern minting is incredibly efficient, with error rates measured in fractions of a percent. And when you start combining multiple error types on a single coin, the statistical probability drops to almost zero, making each confirmed example a true miracle of numismatic survival. And collectors absolutely obsess over these modern errors because they represent the ultimate challenge, the ultimate hunt, the knowledge that somewhere out there, in someone's change jar or piggy bank or forgotten drawer, there might be a coin worth millions that costs exactly 10 cents to acquire if you just know what to look for. And this is the dream that drives the entire error coin community. This is why they spend hours searching through rolls of coins from banks, why they establish relationships with tellers and cashiers, why they attend coin shows and auctions and spend countless hours studying reference materials and online forums, all in pursuit of that one magical moment when they hold in their hands something that will change their financial future forever. And the 2019 Dime has become a particular focus of this community because of several specific varieties and errors that have been documented and verified, including the famous extra leaf anomalies that occasionally appear on Roosevelt Dimes when die polishing or preparation creates unexpected raised lines that resemble vegetation, or the dramatic off-center strikes where the coin blank wasn't properly seated in the collar during striking, resulting in a crescent-shaped portion of blank metal while the design is crushed over to one side. Or the even more spectacular broadstruck errors where the coin expanded beyond its normal boundaries because the color die failed to engage, creating a thin, oversized dime that looks like something from another planet. And each of these error types, when found in high grade, can command prices that range from hundreds to thousands to potentially millions of dollars depending on severity, rarity, and collector demand. But the $31 million valuation we're discussing assumes something even more extraordinary. It assumes a coin that somehow combines multiple major errors in perfect preservation. A coin that experts would argue about for years. A coin that would be featured on the cover of every numismatic publication and discussed at every major coin show, becoming instantly legendary the moment it was revealed to the world. And this is the power of numismatic imagination combined with market reality. Because while such a coin may not have actually sold for $31 million yet, the potential exists, the market dynamics support it, and the collector base is absolutely there to support such a valuation if the right specimen ever emerged. And I want you to think about this for just a moment. I want you to imagine actually finding such a coin. Imagine the moment of discovery when you first notice something odd about a dime you're examining. The way your heart starts beating faster. The way your hands might start shaking as you grab your loupe or magnifying glass to get a better look. The dawning realization that you're looking at something that doesn't match any normal coin you've ever seen. And then the research phase, the obsessive searching through online databases and error coin references, the growing certainty that you've found something special, and finally the authentication process, sending the coin off to a professional grading service and waiting weeks or months for their expert evaluation, the agonizing anticipation, and then the moment of truth when you receive that email or phone call telling you that yes, this is genuine, this is spectacular, this is potentially life-changing. And can you even imagine what that would feel like? Can you imagine going from ordinary person to multi-millionaire simply because you paid attention to your pocket change, simply because you took the time to look, to learn, to care about these small metal discs that most people ignore? And this is why I am so passionate about sharing these stories, because they represent the ultimate democratization of wealth, the idea that anyone, absolutely anyone regardless of their background or education or connections, can potentially strike it rich through knowledge and observation. And the 2019 Dime story is particularly beautiful because it represents the modern era. It proves that treasure hunting isn't just about pirate ships and ancient civilizations. It's happening right now in every convenience store and bank branch across America. And every time you receive change, every time you break a dollar bill, you have a chance, however small, to join the ranks of the lucky few who have found genuine numismatic treasures. And I need to remind you again that we're just getting started. That this $31 million 2019 Dime, as incredible as it is, represents merely the opening act of today's numismatic drama. Because waiting for us is a coin from 1989, from the Denver Mint, that has been whispered about in collecting circles for decades. A coin with a valuation that exceeds what we're discussing now by $26 million. A coin that carries with it the weight of over 30 years of mystery and speculation and desperate searching by collectors who know that somewhere out there, the ultimate Roosevelt Dime exists and waits to be found. And I promise you that the story of the 1989 Dime will challenge everything you think you know about coin collecting. We'll introduce you to concepts and controversies that have divided the numismatic community, and will leave you absolutely desperate to check every old coin collection you can get your hands on. So stay with me, stay engaged, and prepare yourself for a journey into the deepest mysteries of modern American coinage, because next we're going to explore the 1989 Roosevelt Dime. And believe me when I tell you that its story is even more shocking, even more valuable, and even more likely to change your life than anything we've covered so far. Last 1989 D1 Dime. And if you thought the $31 million 2019 Dime we just explored was the pinnacle of modern numismatic insanity, prepare yourself for a revelation that will absolutely shatter your understanding of what pocket change can be worth. because we're now diving into a coin that has achieved legendary status not just for its potential value, but for the decades of mystery, controversy, and pure numismatic drama that have surrounded it since the day it left the Denver Mint over 3 decades ago, and I'm talking about the 1989 Roosevelt Dime, a coin that has been valued by serious collectors and market analysts at an almost incomprehensible $57 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $57 million, nearly $60 million for a single 10-cent piece that looks to the untrained eye exactly like the billions of other dimes produced that year. And this is where the story gets truly fascinating because unlike our modern 2019 coin, the 1989 D-Dime carries with it the weight of history, the accumulation of over 30 years of collector obsession, failed searches, rumored discoveries, and the kind of numismatic mythology that turns ordinary coins into objects of desperate desire. And to understand how any dime could reach such an astronomical valuation, we need to travel back to 1989, a year that was actually quite significant in American history and coinage, the year the Berlin Wall fell, the year the World Wide Web was being developed, the year that the United States Mint was producing coins with technology that was sophisticated for its time but primitive compared to today's standards, creating opportunities for errors and varieties that simply cannot happen in modern minting, and the Denver Mint, with its distinctive D-Mint mark that has appeared on billions of coins over the decades, was churning out Roosevelt Dimes by the hundreds of millions, most of which would circulate for years, get worn down, get lost, get melted, or spend their existence in complete obscurity. But somewhere in that massive production run, something went wrong in a way that created the potential for absolute numismatic perfection, and the specific errors and varieties that make the 1989 D-Dime so valuable are the stuff of collecting legend, including the possibility of dramatic double dies where the hub impressed the design into the working die multiple times at slightly different angles, creating a coin where every letter, every number, every detail of Roosevelt's portrait appears to have a shadow twin, and these double dies, when they occur on the obverse or reverse of dimes, can create visual effects that are absolutely stunning under magnification, with the famous Liberty doubling, the date doubling, and the motto doubling all combining to create a coin that looks almost alive with dimensional depth. And then there are the possible repunched mint marks, where the D was stamped multiple times at slightly different locations, creating a ghostly overlapping effect that collectors absolutely covet because it proves the handcrafted nature of die preparation in an era when automation was taking over. And perhaps most exciting are the possibilities of transitional errors, where the Denver Mint might have accidentally used wrong planchets, wrong metal compositions, or wrong dies from previous years, creating coins that are literally one-of-a-kind museum pieces that should never have existed but somehow escaped into circulation, and the $57 million valuation assumes a coin that combines multiple of these major errors in absolutely perfect preservation. A coin that survived over 3 decades without a single scratch, without any wear, without any environmental damage, maintaining its original mint luster and sharp strike while displaying errors so dramatic and so rare that experts would argue for years about exactly how it was created and whether it could ever be duplicated. And here's where the story becomes absolutely gripping because unlike the 2019 P-Dime, which is still fresh in memory, the 1989 D-Dime has had over 30 years to become legendary, over 30 years for collectors to search, to hope, to dream about finding the ultimate specimen. And in that time, rumors have circulated about discoveries that were never confirmed, about coins that were seen once and then disappeared into private collections or vaults, about wealthy collectors who would pay anything, literally anything, to acquire such a piece if it ever surfaced, and this accumulation of desire, this building of myth and legend, is what drives valuations into the stratosphere. Because in the world of rare coins, the story matters almost as much as the coin itself, and the 1989 D-Dime has one of the greatest stories in modern numismatics, a story of the transition period in American minting when old techniques were giving way to new technologies, when quality control was excellent but not perfect, when the sheer volume of production meant that occasional miracles could slip through, and when the collecting community was entering a new era of sophistication and knowledge that allowed them to finally recognize and appreciate these rarities. And I want you to imagine the specific characteristics that would make a 1989 D-Dime worth $57 million, because this is where your education as a potential treasure hunter really deepens. Imagine a coin with a major obverse double die where the date 1989 appears to have been stamped twice with such dramatic offset that you can clearly see separate digits overlapping, where the word Liberty arches across Roosevelt's head with such pronounced doubling that it looks like there's a shadow inscription behind the main letters, where the torch and olive branch in the design show doubled lines that create an almost ethereal effect, and then combine that with a reverse that's equally spectacular. Perhaps a dramatic die clash where the obverse design was impressed into the reverse die during a striking mishap, creating ghostly raised lines where Roosevelt's profile appears on the back of the coin, or a massive off-center strike where the reverse design is shoved almost off the edge of the coin while the obverse remains relatively normal, creating a bizarre asymmetrical masterpiece. And then imagine that this error-laden miracle somehow, impossibly, remained in perfect mint state condition, graded MS-70 by the most stringent standards, with full bands on the torch showing complete strike detail, with no contact marks, no scratches, no spots, no tarnish, just absolute perfection combined with absolute error rarity. And now imagine that this coin, this impossible combination of attributes, was submitted for auction at one of the major numismatic houses, was featured in pre-sale publicity that sent shockwaves through the collecting world, was viewed by thousands of collectors and dealers who all recognized that they were looking at something that might never be seen again, and then picture the auction itself, the tension in the room, the phone bidders from around the world, the online participants watching the numbers climb higher and higher, the gasps as the bidding passed 10 million, then 20 million, then 30 million, and kept climbing because 2 or 3 ultra-wealthy collectors had decided that this coin, this 1989 Roosevelt Dime, was going to be the centerpiece of their collection regardless of cost, and this is how we arrive at $57 million. Not because it's the metal value, not because it's the face value, but because it's the value of possessing something that nobody else can have, something that represents the absolute pinnacle of a collecting specialty, something that will be studied and admired for generations to come. And the 1989 D-Dime has become a particular focus of this kind of speculation because 1989 was actually a transition year for dime production, with the mint experimenting with different die preparation techniques and quality control measures that created unusual opportunities for errors. And collectors have documented several interesting varieties from this year, including minor double dies, repunched mint marks, and striking anomalies that suggest the potential for even more dramatic discoveries waiting to be found. And I need to emphasize to you that while these ultra-high valuations represent theoretical maximums for perfect specimens, the market for 1989 D-Dimes with genuine errors and varieties is already incredibly strong, with even minor double dies or repunched mint marks commanding hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on condition, meaning that every single 1989 D-Dime you encounter is worth examining carefully, worth checking with a magnifying glass, worth comparing to reference images online, because even if you don't find the $57 million miracle, you might find something worth $500 or $5,000. And in the world of coin collecting, those are still absolutely life-changing finds for most people, and the hunt itself, the knowledge you gain, the community you join, becomes its own reward as you develop the skills and expertise to recognize rarity when you see it. And as we wrap up this exploration of the 1989 D Roosevelt Dime, I want to leave you with a final thought that should echo in your mind every time you handle change for the rest of your life, which is that the coins we take for granted, the dimes and pennies and quarters that pass through our hands every day, are actually artifacts of history, products of complex industrial processes that occasionally produce miracles, and that somewhere out there, perhaps in your possession right now, there might be a coin worth more than a mansion, more than a yacht, more than most people will ever accumulate in their entire lives. And the only thing separating you from that fortune is knowledge, attention, and the willingness to look at what others ignore. And this is the beautiful truth about numismatics. This is why I am so passionate about sharing these stories, because they prove that treasure is real, that it exists in the modern world, and that it might be closer than you ever imagined. So check your change, check your old coin jars, check your grandparents' collections, and remember that every coin has a story, every coin has potential, and in the case of the 1989 Roosevelt Dime, that potential might just be $57 million worth of life-changing possibility.